Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Dolores Tarver. I'm a licensed psychologist here in Georgia, and it is time for the Tea Time with Dr. Tarver is a wellness-based podcast. It is not intended to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health provider. It's March. Can you believe it? We're already here. I'm so excited about how quickly we are moving towards spring so that we can get some of those lighter days in the evening time. But this month is also about women's history. So, episodes will be focusing on women. And I wanted to kick off this episode with something that I frequently hear from women, which is that they don't feel supported. So, let's talk about how to support our sisters. So, let's just start with some basic truths. Most women desire to be able to take care of all of the things that they need to do and execute them well. So, whether that's their careers or children, partners, friendships, churches, community organizations, advocating, all of these things that women put on their plates, and we cannot do all things, we have been known to try to our own detriment at times. It can be very difficult for women to take the best care of ourselves, and that is because sometimes we weren't necessarily encouraged to do so. We are encouraged to be caregivers and supporters of others. And so sometimes it can be really hard for us to allow ourselves to grieve, make time for ourselves, ask for help, or be unavailable when people need us. And oftentimes we do feel responsible for people and we tend to be empathetic. And so it is very easy for us to wonder if we don't help, then who would help? So we can struggle with a lot of different things. One of the things that I think is important for us to understand is that everybody has something underneath the surface. And so we'll put on that mask, but underneath that mask can be insecurities, depression, anxiety, grief, guilt, shame, body image issues, problems with worth, not feeling adequate. And I think when you are looking at ways to support women, then it is important to see a woman as this human being and not as what she does. Or even sometimes that superhero cape that I think a lot of times women don't necessarily want to wear, but feel like they need to wear because they're the only ones. It falls on them. Or in some cases, people perceive they're the only ones, even if they do have support, because they haven't necessarily been able to utilize or access that support, or because typically people haven't necessarily been consistent in their lives or there for them. And so they don't trust that people are going to actually support them just because they offer. So, how do we support women? Offer help. I don't know any woman that actually cannot benefit from help. And particularly the women who you feel like don't need the help are often the women who actually need the help. But it may be difficult for them to ask for help, or unfortunately, sometimes people will offer help with an ulterior motive. And so women often feel as if accepting help means that now you're going to feel as if you're owed something. And so women don't want to be in that position. But genuine help without strings attached, without complaining about it, without throwing it back up in a woman's face is something that absolutely a woman will appreciate. Listening, active listening, hearing a woman and her needs, particularly for women that may have difficulty expressing what their needs are. Sometimes it just takes a person being willing to sit there with them as they work through it. I often will ask women what they need, and they have a hard time telling me, but they can tell me what other people need in their lives. They can absolutely know how to show up for other people, but they can have a very difficult time showing up for themselves. A genuine support system is very important. I think for a lot of us, we have people in our lives, but they are not necessarily people we feel like we could go to if we really needed them. We are able to be present for them when they need us, but when it comes for that reciprocity, sometimes women don't feel like they actually get that. So, people that will show up for you, that will support events that you are over, that will cheer for you when you do something phenomenal. Even when you do something small, sometimes it's just nice to know that people are going to be there. It may not be a huge thing, but it feels huge to you because people are there with you in it. That may be even showing up for doctor's appointments. So many times I've asked women if they needed somebody to go to a doctor's appointment, who would it be? And they can't think of who they would have come with them. And that is because they don't actually feel like people would want to help them, that they feel like they would be a burden or a bother if they were to try to get some support for some people. So normalize women being supported and normalize showing up for women. Mentorship is very important. It is so important for us to be able to see people that look like us doing the things that we want to do. So that is true of women as well. When we see women in leadership, when we see women being able to publicly grieve, when we see women taking time for themselves, when we see women breaking down barriers, it's important. When we see people giving opportunities for growth and development, advocating for women, that's very important. And I think as we talk about some of those work experiences, being able to challenge bias. You see gender bias in your workplaces, you see women being passed over, you see women being dismissed in meetings. Show up, invest in women owned and operated businesses. When you see women being discriminated against, when you see women being harassed, stand up for them, advocate for them. When you see people not respecting women's boundaries, so many women will tell you how uncomfortable it is for them to be in certain spaces because they feel as if people are sexually objectifying them. And we often will make excuses. Well, women, everybody likes women's bodies. It's just you all need to stop being so sensitive. I definitely encourage you to move away from that because all it does is support a culture that people can't be responsible for their own behaviors. It does not matter how attractive that woman is, it does not matter what that woman is wearing. She deserves to have her boundaries respected. She deserves to have people see more than what she looks like. And so it's important for other people to hold folks accountable when you see that's not happening. And in that same vein, compliment a woman about things that she's passionate about things that her intellect reflect, not just about her body. And people will get very offended with you when you don't receive a sexual comment or a comment that you perceived is about your body or it feels sexual or uncomfortable to you. Why you just don't know how to accept a compliment that didn't feel like a compliment to that woman. So, can we normalize that it is not necessarily attractive to or well received by a woman to have comments be made about how well that dress is hugging her curves? Okay, as opposed to, I read that article you did, it was phenomenal. I learned a lot of good things. You led that meeting really well. Thank you for picking up the kids. These compliments need to be from a place that's sincere, but also it don't have to be big things. Like a good thank you can go a long way. And so being able to just say, hey, I appreciate you making sure the family was fed. And again, this goes to challenging gender norms and biases. A lot of people feel like it is expected that a woman feed them and their family. It is expected that a woman show up for you and serve you in these ways. Do understand that a woman does not have to do any of those things. She may be choosing to do those things because of her love for you, and her love for her family, her love for people that she takes care of, but it's still a choice. And so allow her to be able to be affirmed for her making the choice to show up in the way that she does. Encourage her dreams. Affirm her being able to express herself. There is so much negativity about women and how much makeup we wear and our choices of hair. And if you want to go get some cosmetic surgery done, it is so difficult to feel as if you are not accepted for when your body is a natural body because oh you don't look like women that I would find attractive. You're sloppy, you're too big, you're too skinny, you're too small, you're too tall, right? And then if you get cosmetic work done, then it's why are you women getting all this fake stuff? Wear your natural hair. We don't want the BBLs. We don't like all the eyelashes. It is very confusing to women to feel like whoever they are, however they express themselves, it's never enough. And so affirm women, and you don't have to like how women show up. You definitely also don't have to tear it down. You can compliment someone for being comfortable in their skin, whatever that skin looks like for them. I do think it's also important for us to normalize and create spaces for women to discuss experiences in our bodies. Can we have conversation about menstrual cycles? Yes, they're a part of life. Pregnancy, menopause. These are things that occur. They shouldn't be things that women are made to feel embarrassed about or ashamed about, or that their behavior should be dismissed because they're experiencing one of those things. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how women are affected by it. Let's talk about how men are affected by it. Let's talk about how youth are affected by it. Let's begin to be able to have these experiences so there's not shame for women about things that are naturally a part of them being women. And that being said, can we affirm that there are different types of women? There's trans women, there are women of color, there are women with disabilities. We're going to prioritize all women, disenfranchised in particular, and not limit people to being only prioritized if they are a certain type of woman. Follow through. Oftentimes, the reasons women feel as if they have to have that control that so many people complain about, or that you don't like the tone, is because people don't follow through. So people will say they're going to show up and do things, that they'll take care of things, and then they don't. And then it falls back on this woman who is frustrated and tired that this is one more thing that she now has to be responsible to make sure happens because people said they were going to take care of it and didn't. And that's why it's important for us to be able, in this active listening piece, is to not be dismissive of a person's experience. And I think sometimes it's so easy for us to say, oh, you're sensitive, oh, you're taking that out of context, um, or you're making a big deal about that. When that is a woman's experience, and she should be allowed to have a conversation about that, whether you agree with it or not agree with it, and her still be respected. And that's one of the things that women will tell you frequently, which is they want to be respected. So cultivate communities where women can be respected. Support women just doing things that they want to do, not because it's tied to anyone or it's a role or responsibility, but just because. You want to go do that, sis, go do it. Support women taking time for themselves and having space where they can be self-focused and it not be considered as selfishness. Where they can go when nobody's calling their name and there's not an expectation of them. They just get to be. Bring women into conversations. Let them know their voice matters. When you see them being excluded, include them. Talk about healthy sexual relationships openly. Encourage sexual positivity. Because I think a lot of times we have these notions. I see it a lot as people are talking about women, and oh, you're getting on here, you're scantily clad, you're talking about yourself as a sexualized being. And then we ascribe names to it, such as, oh, this woman is loose, she's a harlot. That's trash. I don't want my daughter seeing that. Well, first of all, it is very important for us to recognize that we should be talking to all of our young people about their development in their bodies and positive things about them being touched and being able to be assertive in communication and sexual health. And when we don't, not only are our young people repressed, but also what it ends up doing is it leads to these very unhealthy sexual identities and understandings because they haven't been allowed to talk about what healthy would look like. And our young people are having experiences with people who are taking advantage of them, who are using them, who are demeaning them, who are getting access to them when they are children and not in a place to be able to consent because we're not having conversations about that. You don't get to touch people simply because you like what they look like. You don't get to tell someone, oh, you don't really mean no. You're just playing hard to get. You don't get to tell someone that things they find uncomfortable sexually are things they just need to do if they care about you and love you. You don't need to let any woman believe that her body is simply for someone else's pleasure. And as we talk about these dynamics, then we reduce the likelihood that we will have people engaging in rape culture. We want to encourage women to be able to receive a compliment because oftentimes they are so used to giving other people accolades and compliments that it is very difficult for them to receive them. So I know a lot of times people will say, oh, women don't know how to receive a compliment, they don't know how to take it. If it's a sincere compliment, tell her, hey, I believe that it's true. I want you to hear that and receive it. I want you to work on that. You don't have to attack her because she couldn't hear that, because maybe she's not received it. And so it's difficult for her to be able to accept it. Maybe it's something that she doesn't believe to be true about herself. But if it is a sincere compliment, work with your sisters on that. I think it's also very important for us to constantly be aware of gender equality in all spaces, and that we do not encourage competition among women. Oftentimes women feel like they're competing for jobs, they're competing for love, they're competing for acceptance. So we want to promote affirming, loving, safe spaces for women to be who they are without feeling like they have to prove themselves or earn something in order for them to be loved and accepted. Can we also support mothers in public? Yes, the one whose kids are having a meltdown, the one who has multiple kids that she's trying to get fed, the ones that are breastfeeding, the ones with multiple bags and strollers, the ones who are trying to manage kids in the grocery store and get their groceries, the ones who are at the gas pump and trying to make sure that they're checking in on those sleeping infants, the ones that are in parking lots, who have bags of groceries in their hands or in their buggy and they're trying to get them unloaded and watch their kid who is trying to run off, the ones on airplanes that who may have infants or other children who are crying or having difficult time. Maybe they've got an ear infection or the pressure of the airplane is bothering them. Can we support them instead of talking about them? Can we assist them? Ask how we can support, ask how we can be present instead of taking pictures of them and posting them on social media? Can we just normalize making women smile? Little things can go a long way. So when you say, hey, I got these groceries, and you put them in that car, when you say, I see you, sis, I like that outfit on you, well, you have a wonderful smile. Those things matter. Stand with your sisters. Stand with them when they're alone, when they're grieving, when they're hurting, when they're being abused. Protect your women. Love your women. Encourage your women. Validate your women. Appreciate your women. Stand up for us this month and every month. Okay? Be well.